Welcome back. Now we come to Tuesday's lesson, and what has to be for me one of the most confusing statements in all of Scripture. It's Philippians 1:23, in which Paul says, "I'm torn between two desires. I long to go and be with Christ, which would be far better for me." And on the surface, it would seem that Paul is saying that when he dies, he expects immediately to go to heaven. This has been maybe one of the toughest passages to both understand and to explain. There are a couple of things we need to understand. First is Paul's state of mind. Paul was suffering. Think about this. How many times had Paul taken a beating for the sake of the gospel? On one occasion, he had been stoned to death. He had been shipwrecked, shackled for long periods of time in prison, and the list just goes on and on and on. And at the end of it, Paul's body is in pain. He is suffering, and he simply wants it to end. And the only thing that keeps him going is his love for those whom he led to Christ. But what about that part about dying so he could be with Christ? First, we need to recognize the difference between Hebrew thinking and ours today. We know that there are times when the Bible writers talk about two events as if they happened at the same time, when in fact we know that long periods of time have taken place between the two events. The Bible writers simply assumed that the reader would know about the passage of time. So how do we know that Paul doesn't mean what a plain reading of the text seems to imply? Again, this is why we don't build a doctrine on one text. Look at what Paul had to say about those who die. In 1 Thessalonians 4, he tells believers that the dead are raised to life at the second coming. In 2 Timothy 4, he tells believers that he receives the crown of righteousness at the second coming. In 1 Corinthians 15, he teaches the resurrection and not of the immortal soul. The fact of the matter is, Paul is assuming that his audience knows what he knows, that when you die, there's no passage of time in the grave. This means that from the moment you die to the moment you are resurrected for the dead, it happens in an instant. As if the two events happened at the same time, when in fact, a long period of time has passed. Paul was a man in pain who simply wanted the pain to end because he knew that what awaited him was far better than his present suffering. Again, that was our nugget for today. Please have a look at your lesson. I'll see you tomorrow.